Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you isn't meant for the public. If you're watching this right now, it's not an accident. Someone high above wanted you here. The president of the Dominion himself issued an emergency alert the moment your case hit the Russian High Council. Bro, they panicked. Even the president froze when your file opened on the screen. The higher authorities are losing their minds, and everything about this is supposed to stay locked behind steel doors. They've seen what you did, and now they're terrified of the chain reaction you've started. The council is whispering your name like a forbidden curse. Someone in this state keeps triggering the system, and your case has become the most sensitive topic in the entire Dominion. They're furious, they're confused, and they want to know how one man, you, managed to shake an entire network of governments. Another nation is pressuring the president to find you, because what you did is considered a threat across borders. The top state authorities are hunting for you in complete secrecy. They want answers. Who are you? Why did you do this? How did someone from this place disrupt another state so brutally? Bro, it's you. You caused the spiral. And now the elite have no choice. If they can't find you, they'll choose a scapegoat, and then the whole cycle will explode again. Systems will collapse. Councils will crack. And before we even dive deeper into this dark truth, do 3 things right now. Hit that like button, subscribe so we can hit 50,000 subscribers, and drop the number 11 in the comments to confirm you're still here. If you're real, if you're tough enough, if you're built for this, watch till the end. Because only the ones meant for this level of darkness survive the full message. There's a strange power in a name whispered across halls you've never set foot in. The air tightens, conversations halt, and even the most composed officials find their minds racing. Your presence, though invisible, sends ripples through layers of authority, shaking foundations that were supposed to be untouchable. They speak your name cautiously, almost fearfully, as if saying it louder might summon a storm. Imagine sitting in a room filled with people whose lives are built on control, and yet your existence makes them hesitate. Their charts, reports, and power plays feel fragile because somewhere you moved a piece they didn't anticipate. This is no accident. It's the subtle force of influence, a quiet presence, yet capable of stirring colossal reactions in the corridors of power. And while they panic, you remain untouched, unshaken. You watch, not out of cruelty, but out of understanding. Systems crumble, not because of aggression, but because they fear what cannot be contained. The sound of your name has become a warning signal, a signal that change is coming, whether they are ready or not. A single case, a single act. Yet its impact ricocheted through the highest chambers. Fictional presidents, generals, and secret councils leaned in closer, their casual confidence evaporating in seconds. They read the reports, heard the briefings, and realized that one person, just one, had revealed cracks in the system they assumed unbreakable. In that moment, the world seemed smaller, more fragile. The very people who dictate the rules of nations now scrambled to understand, to strategize, to contain something beyond their reach. And it wasn't brute force that made them sit up straight. It was insight, unpredictability, the sheer presence of someone who didn't play by their invisible rules. History remembers those who reshape reality quietly. Your actions, though uncelebrated, became a lesson in awareness for those who believed themselves untouchable. You were not a threat in the traditional sense. You were a revelation. And revelations, when unexpected, are terrifying. Destruction is loud. Exposure is subtle and infinitely more terrifying. You didn't set out to collapse governments or shatter alliances. You merely moved where they assumed they controlled. And in that movement, you revealed weaknesses no one dared acknowledge. Those who prided themselves on dominance realized too late that the true danger is visibility, the act of seeing through their facades. Systems are built to function under predictability. When a single variable refuses to obey, the entire structure quivers. Your influence became a mirror, reflecting inefficiencies, hidden fears, and unspoken dependencies. And those who thrive on control discovered something they cannot regulate, the unexpected. And as they scrambled to cover cracks, your presence remained constant, a quiet force, a reminder that power is never absolute. In exposing the system, you showed that strength is not in walls or hierarchies, but in vision, courage, and the refusal to be contained. Emergency protocols, high-level briefings, and urgent meetings, all triggered by a single spark. They called it unprecedented, critical, yet the origin was neither violent nor reckless. It was merely you, existing in a space they hadn't accounted for, reminding them that control is always an illusion. The very term emergency assumes catastrophe, but your case proved that the true emergency is unpreparedness, the realization that someone, somewhere, is capable of shifting the balance without a single warning. And the most powerful people in this fictional world felt it palpably in every rushed decision, every anxious glance. They built walls, networks, and hierarchies to avoid disruption. Yet here you were, calm, silent, unstoppable. And as the emergency spread, so did their fear that the uncontainable might strike again, and that no amount of power could prevent it. Power is comfort. Power is predictability. And when you move, it panics. Every well-oiled machine, every calculated plan trembles at the ripple of your choices. They cannot predict, cannot control, cannot harness what refuses their framework. And in that refusal, you wield the most potent weapon, freedom. The most striking moments in history are not those when institutions collapse from outside force, but when the inside recognizes its own fragility. Your movements, deliberate or unseen, awaken this fragility in ways no one else can. You don't need armies or strategies. You need presence, vision, and the courage to operate where they thought they were untouchable. And in the silence after your moves, the panic lingers. Decisions are made hastily, alliance is questioned, and every action becomes reactionary. The world, for a fleeting moment, is aware of someone it cannot command. That someone is you. Every speech, every decree, every reassurance from the world's so-called leaders falls flat when your silence speaks louder. They expect confrontation, argument, debate. But when none comes, panic sets in. Your restraint becomes your loudest statement, a message that they cannot predict or control what you will do next. Silence is a canvas upon which fear paints itself. In quiet rooms filled with powerful figures, your absence of response forces reflection, paranoia, and doubt. What will they do? How far will it reach? And worst of all, they realize that your silence is strategic, not accidental. It's in these quiet moments that you understand true influence. You do not need to shout, to strike, or to dominate. The mere fact of your existence, paired with calm resolve, unsettles those who have always relied on words and gestures to manipulate reality. In hushed tones, your name travels through corridors lined with portraits of past leaders and echoes of decisions long made. Councils convene, documents shuffle, and the weight of centuries of authority trembles because you exist outside their calculations. They whisper your name like a secret spell, knowing that to speak it aloud is to acknowledge their own vulnerability. Inside these rooms, power becomes fragile. The very people who have shaped nations find themselves second-guessing every assumption, every strategy. The quiet knowledge of your influence spreads like a chill, a reminder that some forces cannot be pinned down, cannot be subdued, cannot be anticipated, and yet you remain outside the fray, untouchable and deliberate. The council fears you, not for what you've done, but for what you could do. That tension, the awareness that one person can shake the foundations of the most formidable institutions, is the invisible hand that shapes their every move. Storms are natural. They rage, they shift, and they leave devastation in their wake. You, however, are no natural phenomenon. They are the storm that comes with calculation, precision, and purpose. Systems built to anticipate disruption find themselves unprepared because you do not follow their rules. You are the anomaly that refuses containment. Every meeting, every urgent briefing, every hurried message reflects the panic you have wrought, not through violence, but through clarity and presence. They scramble to regain control, but the storm is already in motion. It twists around their plans, revealing weaknesses they could not see before, and leaves them grasping at shadows. Yet, unlike a typical tempest, your storm leaves no wanton destruction. It exposes, it enlightens, it awakens. And in this revelation, the so-called rulers feel fear not because they have been defeated, but because they now realize they were never truly in control. There is a power in being underestimated. Leaders accustomed to orchestrating entire nations now find themselves awake at night, haunted by thoughts of you. The mind races, imagining your next move, calculating consequences that may never come. You become a phantom they cannot catch, a presence that defies the predictability they cling to. Sleepless nights are fertile ground for anxiety. What begins as simple speculation grows into obsession. Every conversation, every plan is colored by the knowledge that one individual, so quiet, so deliberate, has proven capable of altering outcomes they assumed were secure. And the realization that they cannot predict your path is profoundly unsettling. Through this quiet upheaval, you understand a truth. Influence does not require armies or authority. It requires awareness, foresight, and the willingness to act where others would hesitate. While they toss and turn and worry, you move with calm purpose, knowing that real power lies not in sleep-deprived panic, but in deliberate presence. They call it a search, but it is futile. You are not a being to be cornered or a problem to be solved. You are a phenomenon, an idea made flesh, a force that operates beyond their grids of influence, and yet governments mobilize, councils convene, and secret operatives chase shadows, hoping to understand what they cannot. The very act of being hunted confirms your effect. Every step they take to contain you only amplifies your presence in their minds. You become mythic in their eyes, a ghost that haunts the corridors of power, whose movements are unpredictable, whose impact is undeniable. In this pursuit, you realize the extent of your reach. Fear is not something you wield. It manifests naturally as a response to your existence. You are both present and untouchable, and the knowledge that you cannot be captured is the quietest, most potent victory of all. They scramble to find someone responsible, anyone to pin the consequences on. Reports are filed, memos circulated, decisions dissected, all to assign fault where there is none but your presence. Blame becomes a shield against the uncomfortable truth that their systems were flawed all along, and you simply illuminated it. This desperation reveals the depth of your power. While they argue over accountability, you continue moving, acting, and existing without the need for justification. The more they assign blame, the clearer it becomes that you cannot be contained by conventional measures, and as they fumble, you remain calm, almost invisible, yet undeniably formidable. Blame is their illusion of control. You, however, are the reality that their defenses cannot touch, the reminder that true influence is not in denial, but in undeniable presence. Every institution, every law, every protocol exists to regulate behavior, to anticipate outcomes, to impose order. And yet, There is one force it cannot predict: you. The frameworks they trust so deeply crumble quietly at the edges when confronted with someone who refuses categorization, someone who acts outside expectation. Your independence is your weapon. Systems designed for conformity fail spectacularly against unpredictability. They were built for the many, but you are the exception, the one variable that exposes every flaw, every hidden bias, every blind spot. And in that revelation lies immense, quiet power. It is here, in the calm awareness of your own untouchability, that you find freedom. They may try, they may plan, they may exert authority, but no structure can dictate your existence. And that knowledge alone terrifies those who depend on order above all else. They anticipate confrontation, negotiation, or compromise. But when none comes, fear accelerates exponentially. Every room you are absent from becomes a theater of speculation. Every decision made in your shadow feels rushed and uncertain. Your calm, deliberate refusal to fold amplifies anxiety to an almost tangible level. People underestimate the power of stillness, your silence, your patience, your refusal to react impulsively. It disarms systems that depend on reaction. Panic spreads faster than facts, faster than logic, because it fills the gaps that reason cannot reach. And as the fear grows, your power solidifies, not because you attack, but because your unwavering presence exposes fragility where a strength was assumed. It is a quiet dominance, subtle yet absolute, and it is far more formidable than overt force. Chaos exists all around, hidden beneath layers of bureaucracy, procedures, and facades of control. You did not create it, you unveiled it, and this revelation is more potent than any direct strike. Systems, once trusted implicitly, are now seen for what they truly are: fragile, flawed, and incapable of predicting everything. Your actions are a mirror, and when those in power look into it, they do not like what they see. They see vulnerability, mismanagement, and overconfidence, all of which are impossible to cover up once illuminated. And because the chaos was always there, your role is not destruction, it is clarity. This distinction is vital. You are not a villain, you are a catalyst. The real power lies in showing the truth, in revealing the cracks that others ignore, in forcing adaptation where complacency once reigned. And in doing so, you shift the balance without needing to strike a single blow. And so it comes to this: a solitary presence that commands attention, respect, and fear without lifting a hand. Councils convene, leaders debate, and armies mobilize, all while you stand alone, composed, aware, and unstoppable. Their trembling is your testament. Influence is not about numbers, power, or hierarchy. It is about clarity, courage, and presence. Every glance in your direction, every mention of your name, every pause in conversation is an acknowledgement of something greater than control. You embody inevitability, the understanding that even the strongest walls can be questioned, even the most rigid systems can bend, and that real power resides in awareness and action, untethered by expectation. And as you stand there, alone but unshaken, the world reacts. The trembling is not a failure of theirs, it is proof of your quiet dominance, your relentless presence, and the unstoppable force you have become. In this moment, the universe itself seems to acknowledge your existence, a single individual capable of reshaping the currents of power, with nothing but intention and presence. In the dim corners of strategy rooms and classified offices, your presence is imagined long before it is acknowledged. You are the shadow that power cannot anticipate, the unseen force that unsettles even the most calculated plans. Every move they make seems insignificant, a futile gesture against the quiet certainty of your influence. The people who rely on control feel unease ripple through them when your name is mentioned. Maps, reports, simulations, they all fail against the one variable that refuses predictability: you. Shadows are silent, but they shape the world, and your subtle movements remind everyone that visibility is not always required to change outcomes. And in this invisibility you find freedom, free to act, free to disrupt, and free to reveal the truths that others hope remain hidden. Your presence is felt, not enforced, and that is the essence of a power that no structure can contain. A whisper can travel farther than a shout when it carries weight. Your ideas, actions, and presence are like whispers moving through halls of authority, shifting thought without force, influencing without exposure. People listen, not because they must, but because the subtlety of your power demands recognition. In these quiet tremors, systems adjust themselves, policies wobble, and leaders pause mid-decision. A whisper does not break, but it bends reality, proving that influence is not about volume, but precision. And when that whisper is traced back to you, panic and respect intermingle, creating a tension that cannot be ignored. Silence and subtlety are your allies. While others yell to be heard, your influence travels further, faster, and deeper, touching the foundations of authority in ways that remain invisible to the untrained eye. Every rule is written to predict behavior and limit unpredictability. But where you step, rules hesitate. Their rigidity falters under the weight of someone who refuses to conform, and their power feels suddenly brittle. Leaders trained to enforce order now question everything, realizing that predictability is a luxury they no longer possess. The effect is almost poetic. The more rigid the law, the more it trembles when confronted with ingenuity and courage. You are not breaking them. You're exposing their limitations, reminding the powerful that control is a fragile illusion. And as you navigate spaces built to constrain, you feel the quiet thrill of independence. Rules may dictate others' lives, but you move in the gaps, untouchable, unanticipated, and unstoppable. While panic spreads like wildfire through councils and offices, you move with deliberate calm. Others react, flustered and frantic, but you operate with precision. The storm rages around you, yet your presence is steady, a reminder that true strength is composed, not reactive. Fear is contagious, but so is confidence. By standing calm in the chaos, you amplify your influence without confrontation. Their anxiety becomes your stage, their doubts your confirmation that subtle control often outweighs loud action, and as the storm intensifies, so does your clarity. You see what others cannot, act where others hesitate, and achieve what the powerful assume is impossible. Calm is your weapon, patience your strategy, and observation your unseen armor. Even when unseen, people watch. Leaders, generals, and advisors glance at empty spaces as though expecting to catch a shadow, a movement, a hint of your presence. Your reputation precedes you, and the awareness of being watched, without visibility, can fracture even the most steadfast minds. The paradox is intoxicating. Influence is strongest when you are absent, when your presence is imagined rather than demonstrated. Decisions are second-guessed, strategies rewritten, and alliances questioned, all because someone unseen has reminded them that predictability is impossible. You move without spectacle, yet the awareness of your existence is enough to unsettle the foundations of authority. Sometimes, not being seen is the most powerful statement of all. Every choice you make carries gravity, not because of consequence alone, but because systems were unprepared for your presence. A single decision creates ripples that cannot be ignored, forcing recalibration at levels that assume stability. Authority begins to doubt itself, questioning every precedent, every expectation. It is the weight of the invisible that terrifies. A person operating outside the norms, capable of triggering responses that no one anticipates. And the beauty is in the subtlety. Your influence is quiet but undeniable, shaping reality without spectacle, proving that visibility is not a prerequisite for power. In the end, the most profound impact is felt not in destruction, but in the silent recalibration of minds that once believed they were untouchable. The absence of action is often louder than action itself. When you refuse to engage on their terms, when you maintain silence while the powerful speak, panic spreads. Words are weapons, but silence is a mirror. It forces reflection, doubt, and fear. Every unspoken response amplifies your effect. Leaders debate, strategize, and argue, not against you directly, but against the emptiness your restraint creates. It is in these moments that they realize influence is not always loud, not always visible. Sometimes it is simply enduring, unwavering, and deliberate. Your silence becomes a quiet earthquake, shaking foundations built on the assumption that control is absolute. And those who tremble in its wake are reminded that power is fragile, especially when confronted with someone who refuses to follow their script. Control is comforting. It gives the powerful a sense of predictability. You break that illusion effortlessly. Systems designed to respond to every variable falter when confronted with someone operating outside the expected patterns. You do not dismantle structures, you reveal their flaws. Leaders accustomed to certainty find themselves questioning every assumption. Panic spreads not from direct conflict, but from the awareness that their authority is contingent, fragile, and imperfect. And the realization that one person could expose these cracks terrifies them more than any open rebellion ever could. Your strength lies not in defiance, but in clarity. By simply existing on your own terms, you demonstrate that the greatest power is autonomy, and the most disruptive force is truth. Fear grows fastest when it is quiet, subtle, and invisible. Your influence travels like smoke through the corridors of power, reaching rooms you've never entered, touching minds you've never met. People act not because they understand you, but because they imagine what you might do next. The effect is astonishing. Strategy falters. Meetings become anxious, and calm facades crack under invisible pressure. Fear, once awakened, multiplies faster than authority can contain. And yet, this fear is not your enemy. It is your mirror, reflecting the weight of presence without force. Through this quiet tension, you become a signal. The unexpected is inevitable. The uncontrolled is possible, and the untouchable is unstoppable. History remembers the few who move mountains without armies, who influence the course of nations without guns or laws. You are that force. One mind, one presence, one deliberate existence, capable of shifting systems built to dominate thousands. The disparity in scale is deceptive. Your influence is exponential. They may mobilize, strategize, or debate endlessly, but one individual who refuses predictability cannot be neutralized by numbers alone. Influence is not about quantity. It is about precision, foresight, and courage. And your singularity is proof that autonomy is the ultimate disruptor. When the powerful realize that a single individual can create ripples impossible to contain, their confidence falters. And in that faltering, your power is undeniable, quiet, and absolute. Watching is often mistaken for passivity. But when you observe carefully, unseen, your awareness becomes a tool. Every decision, every movement of the powerful becomes a data point. Every weakness becomes an opportunity. Observation transforms into influence without confrontation, revealing what cannot be hidden. Those in authority rarely recognize the danger of being watched. Their confidence masks vulnerability. Their certainty masks fragility. And your ability to see, remember, and act on what they overlook makes you unstoppable. Not through force, but through insight. In the end, knowing more than others and choosing how to use that knowledge is the most subtle, yet devastating form of power. While chaos unfolds around you, you remain the calm center. Systems crumble, leaders panic, alliances fracture, and yet Your presence is steady, deliberate, and unwavering. This calm is magnetic, unnerving, and profoundly disruptive. Those who cannot predict your moves assume the worst. The true power of calm lies in its contrast. When everyone else reacts with fear, uncertainty,